NXT slash TNA and their little crossover event from this past weekend and what could be more. Keeping things kind of simple because the event is now in the past and we're moving on. But was the NXT slash TNA crossover parts of NXT, did it, when you watched Battleground this past weekend, did it make it that much better of a show, or was it not needed?
I don't think it was necessarily needed because I think it was an added bonus because I do, looking back and I watched the entire show. Looking back at it, it was a pretty good show. I thought the matches were really good. I thought, everything was pretty entertaining. I felt like, I was kind of surprised by Lola Vice beating Shayna Baszler in the underground match. That was a kind of surprise.
I was surprised how long that went. That was like one of the longer matches. And I thought when I went and saw the underground stuff down in Philadelphia WrestleMania weekend, the matches were all very short because
that was actually the shortest match of the night.
It was short. It was short, I guess, in comparison of the main events and such. I'm just saying it's crazy that it lasted as long as it did. I was expecting under 5 minutes, under 4 minutes. Because there's really nothing to it. There's no. It reminds you. Remember in WWE terms. Remember the Big Show versus Aki Bono at WrestleMania 21 when they did that quote unquote sumo match, right? And the first to knock the person out of the ring and the match is over. I want to say that was under a minute. That whole thing lasted. Yeah. So I was expecting it to be, especially when they left the ring. I expected, okay, they're going to leave the ring, but just one time, and then they left the ring again. Mm-hmm. And I thought, again, the whole idea of this is it's supposed to be contained in the ring, quick, pretty much punches, holds, that's it. And they left the ring. It just lasted longer than I thought it was because, like I said, I
liked it. Down
at the Battleground, what do you call it? I forget what not Battleground, but the one where they do this in GCW and they had Shayna Baszler involved. I want to say the match with Masha Slamovich lasted a lot shorter than this one did. And I was also surprised Lola Vice got the win.
Yeah, Lola Vice, she looked good in the match. She did a good job. I personally liked the match, even the other parts of it where they're outside of the squared circle, so to speak. I liked it because you mentioned, essentially, fist kicks, holds, it was kind of what you were expecting, but you weren't expecting the outside stuff, which was kind of cool. There were still some cool sequences in there. I thought it delivered more than I thought it would, so I was actually pleasantly surprised. And I actually wouldn't mind seeing if this were to come up again for another match, if it's the right competitors like it was in this situation, I would be down for another one of those type of matches again.
I think overall the pay-per-view, like I said, I posed a question to you. I don't know if it necessarily needed the TNA involvement. Jordan Grace was cool, and I love the whole Vic Joseph thing where he's like, look, it's TNA's Ash by Elegance who came out during that match. And then in the main event, it was a good main event, but, I figured if you have good competitors on NXT and you just had a good women's championship match, yes, obviously you got the eyeballs like myself because of the intrigue, but the fact that neither TNA star went over, and the matches were good for sure, but overall it still felt very much like an NXT event. It didn't feel transcending. It didn't feel like must-watch television.
Solid.
It's a solid show, but I guess what I say why it doesn't feel like must-watch is it felt like a TNA or an NXT event feels. It felt like it felt like Vengeance Day or one of those other events. It felt solid, but it felt as a solid NXT card. I didn't feel like, a good example is I think AEW and New Japan's Forbidden Door pay-per-view doesn't feel any different really than another AEW pay-per-view, especially when this one comes up, than the other ones that are provided. I don't think AEW needs this. It doesn't feel like WrestleMania feels different than Backlash. Like WrestleMania feels different than Elimination Chamber. Those events feel different, right? This felt like I was watching, I'm going to watch NXT Heatwave coming up in a couple weeks in Toronto, right? And I imagine that will probably feel like another NXT event, right? It won't feel that much. It didn't feel like I was watching something transcendent.
What did you make of the main event? What did you think of that?
It was a decent main event. I was surprised. I was overall surprised that none of the TNA people went over because the idea is I thought we were going to have more. It reminds me to take another past event, probably from the 2000 era, early 2000s, like the Invasion angle, right? The first ever Invasion and the only invasion, had the WCW Alliance team win. You had the bad guys win the first meeting, and then throughout the next couple of months, you had them kind of swap back and forth until at the end at Survivor Series 2001, the WWF went over, and that whole angle ended. So I thought here we were going to have like a TNA invasion. I thought we were going to have Jordan Grace win. I thought that was a foregone, and I thought maybe Ethan Page wins, and then now the NXT guys chase them over to the TNA shows, and we kind of maybe have a back and forth throughout the summer before eventually this thing plays its course. The NXT guys win on their pay-per-view, and they split their separate ways. So I guess I was a little surprised in that. And I heard we're might have some more TNA crossovers, and it was kind of weird because the crossover that we did have at the event, the one I guess you would say, was Ash by Elegant / Dana Brooke, and there's rumors and talk about Mustafa Ali, who's currently in TNA. And I'm wondering, from their perspective, how weird it is that they were let go by this company, and now they're essentially back at this company. And maybe if AJ Francis, who's the digital media champion right now, maybe if he does the same thing, it feels kind of strange, I guess, from their perspective. And you're wondering if we're going to have any crossovers of people who don't. I mean, Ethan Page really didn't, and Jordan Grace really feel like more full TNA talents. And I wonder if we're going to have any more full TNA crossover, or we're just going to have guys who WWE recently just fired coming over and kind of, them getting more money out of them.
I mean, it's possible. I mean, we're going to see, speaking of TNA and all the, and all the different wrestlers over the years that have been in TNA, WWE, AEW, like there's so much transition going on in the business right now. One thing I did notice, I don't know if you noticed it in the last, I think in the last 24 hours or so, it sounds like there's rumors that are cooking up about Matt Hardy going to be joining the NXT brand. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, Jeff Hardy's contract also is coming to a close here.
But Jeff Hardy reports are with Jeff Hardy's contract, they're going to tack on time because of his time away. I'm just putting that out there.
And to be fair, I like Jeff Hardy and all that, but how many now? It seems like they played hot potato between multiple companies in the last 10 years a lot, right? Think about.
I don't think it's a bad thing. I don't think it's a bad thing because you're getting here's the thing. I don't think all TNA fans watch WWE. I don't think all AEW fans watch. It's like there's pockets of each company that don't watch the other ones. We all know that. So to me, it's like I think it's cool that they're exposing themselves potentially to an audience that maybe knows them but doesn't watch them regularly.
Now here's a question I'll pose to you. Would you rather have, because I'm kind of done with the Hardys, and no offense to them at all or anything, but we just seen a lot of them, and they kind of stay their course in every company they go to, and then they move on. And I just worried that the next time they move on, it's not going to be that WrestleMania 33 pop, right? Once you move on, once you come back to WWE, I don't think you're recreating some of that stuff. So the question I'll pose to you is, would you rather the Hardys, both of them, Matt and Jeff, wrap it up now for their in-ring career, or one last run in NXT?
That's a tough question. I lean towards them as a tag team because that's what we all know them to be. So I guess I have to go both ways. It's kind of a cop-out answer. But if Matt Hardy's going to be there without Jeff for a little bit, I'd like to see a cool little run with Matt Hardy working with the NXT talent, working with some of the up-and-coming superstars that could use a little bit of work. That Matt Hardy's knowledge of the business, obviously he's been in the business since the 90s. I think that would help. But also getting a run in there. And then what you do is you do the second part of it where Jeff Hardy is now out of AEW. Then you make them have a run in WWE. I think they have one more run as tag champions, and then that's it.
Yeah, I just feel like NXT would be a good play. I just don't know if that would be good enough because that's kind of the low end of the spectrum in terms of wrestling. You don't want to go out like in the minors, if you will. But I just feel like we've seen them. I saw him in TNA, right? And he made it great. Matt Hardy specifically, right? Rebirthed himself in Impact Wrestling so that he could have that big return at WrestleMania 33. They had a great little run back in the WWE after WrestleMania 33. Then they moved on. Then he did the thing with Bray Wyatt for a little bit, with the Deleter of Worlds tag team he had going on there, where he brought back the broken character a little bit, moved along to AEW. We saw them do some things there. Now he's back in TNA currently with the broken gimmick, or it's hard to tell because of the trademarks, what you can broken or what they can use it where, because I remember there was that whole thing when he came back to WWE in general. But obviously, it's like broken Matt Hardy, and then I'm trying to think. There's the other Matt Hardy that it's broken, but they can't use that word.
I know what you're talking. I can't think of it either. I don't know the name off the top of my head, but I know what you're. I mean, at the end of the day, I personally would like to see Matt Hardy. Obviously, however long it's going to take till Jeff can get there. Like, I want them to build some sort of story. And I know it's going to sound cheesy when it comes out of my mouth here in a second, but Matt does this really cool storyline with somebody, and then they get to the pinnacle of it. And then maybe Matt gets attacked, and then Jeff Hardy comes out to save the day. Maybe they do a program kind of, off of that. And then eventually maybe they get one last tag championship run. And then I think at that point, after that, I think they should go maybe look into the producing side, whether it's WWE, AEW, TNA. Like, there's going to be opportunities all over the place, because I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I believe TNA has Santino Marella on staff, if I'm not mistaken.
They do, yes. Yeah,
so that's another
TNA event, which I have many. You'll run into Santino Marella. He's like, because I mean, TNA is a small company, so like the backstage is small itself. So yeah, even when they come out, like you'll see Santino Marella like essentially walk through the crowd. You know what I mean? Kind of to do that kind of producing and stuff throughout parts of the show. So you'll run into Santino Marella if you go to a TNA show for sure. You'll see him out, with the people, because again, the backstage areas are kind of small, and it's probably not as easy as like WWE with all the monitors and the backstage. They got to kind of go out the same front door as everyone else.
One quick thing on NXT before we move on from it. I have to get your thoughts, because I know I texted you the other day. So there was Cody Rhodes, there was All Ego Ethan Page. I believe there was. I'm trying to think who else was in the picture. I think
Shawn Spears.
Shawn Spears, Lexis King. So those group of guys. What did you make of the subtle jab at AEW? What did you think of that?
I mean, I don't. With the line, you guys are in a good place. I mean, only time will really tell here, because to be fair, there's these. We've seen this now with a couple people, right? Now Lexis King, I think he's all right, and he's kind of rebuilding himself. But like Shawn Spears, he wasn't really used well in AEW, that's for sure. 100%. But here he is still in NXT and WWE as well. So, Cody Rhodes can definitely say he is in a great place, and things are really working out for him.
Ethan Page, too, early on. Ethan Page got a title match, his first match in the business, in WWE. That's cool.
True. But remember, Cody Rhodes and Shawn Spears, they faced off in AEW, and it's easy for Cody Rhodes to tell people like Shawn Spears, hey, you're in a good spot, when, since that meeting, Cody Rhodes has essentially taken over the top throne in all of professional wrestling, while Shawn Spears is still trying to find his way. And I don't think right now he's as hot as he was back in the origin days of the black and gold NXT. I hope he gets back there. But yeah,
would you like to see the perfect 10?
I would, and I'd like to see. I don't know if he can catch lightning in a bottle like he did, similar to like when he made his appearance in the Royal Rumble, right, at number 10. So it's easy for Cody Rhodes to say those kind of things. It'd be nice and cool if some of those other guys reach the top of that mountain like he does. But, I don't necessarily think it was necessarily a jab. I think it was just promoting, being happy where you are. And it's kind of weird, too, with like Ethan Page, right, because he isn't really.
Wait. Hold on a second. You're not buying the fact that was a little nudge? Like, you get all the former recently, fairly recent guys.
No, I get it. I get it that they were all other places, and now they're here. And that other place, for the most part, was AEW. So I get that nudge. I don't necessarily think it was a jab, right? It's like when you get traded.
I think it was. I 100% think it was. Because here's the thing. AEW has done the same thing, where they've made certain comments towards WWE in a nonchalant way, and like kind of like there's a little nudge there. I think it's good that they do it. I don't think it's a bad thing. I'm not saying the jab is a bad thing. I think if there's little subtleties that like it's like, yeah, we know you're we know what the other company's doing, wink wink, kind of a thing. Like, I kind of like that. I think it creates even more interest in the business. So I'm okay with it as long as it doesn't get too out of hand. I do like these little subtle nudges, and
I think the biggest jab WWE is giving to AEW right now is the fact that they're kind of running this whole Forbidden Door storyline somewhat. I mean, and they're talking about it getting bigger, and there's even talk this weekend that NOAH Wrestling, right, is going to make an announcement involving some sort of collaboration with WWE this weekend. So I think the fact that they're doing these collaborations with TNA, they're doing these collaborations with NOAH potentially, all in the month in which AEW traditionally does their collaboration with New Japan, that's a big jab right there, because you're saying, oh, while you're doing this Forbidden Door storyline at the end of the month here with AEW, we are going to run congruently the same thing. So I think that's the big jab right there, with, you know, maybe not speaking it, but that's, I think, the big kind of acknowledgement, because that's
it's fun. It's a fun time. It's a fun time to be a wrestling fan, because there's a lot going on, and I'm all for it.